those who are innovators, who are really trying to expand the industry and change things up, like what you're doing, right? That's very much something where you need a large operation. You really need a lot of people on the team to be able to build and scale and grow and develop. But a lot of people that you and I know, for example, internet marketers, I don't think they need to have as crazy of an operation as they do have, because a lot of it is just excess complexity. When you really look at what's actually bringing in results and what's actually generating revenue for your business, half of the stuff that you're doing doesn't even matter.
We have another awesome episode of Beyond a Million for you, and today's guest is Lauren Tickner. Lauren went from a job in asset management to fitness influencer. She then started selling fitness courses online, which eventually led her to founding Impact School, a company that helps coaches and consultants scale. Brad and Lauren cover a ton in this episode. Everything from social media marketing and how to drive more leads and close deals through direct messages, to operational tactics and managing the work-life balance. Plus, we get to hear about Lauren's personal experiences and the perks that come with living in Dubai. Here's Beyond a Million episode 92 with Lauren Tickner and Brad Weimer.
Lauren Tickner, I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, well, in Austin, what else could I do here?
You can do a lot of things here, but I'm glad you made it to the studio. We were going to do it remote, and it's so much better to do things in person.
So much better.
So I want to open with, so every time we have people on the show, they fill out a form to help us get, construct for who they are, like details or whatever. Yeah. I want to read some of yours.
Okay.
So opening line, 3 million in profit per year, maybe too small for your show, but I don't go by big dick top line rev, LOL. Revenue goes up and down, but the aim is to stabilize and slowly increase profit.
Yep.
Fucking love it.
Was not expecting you to read that out loud, but here we are.
It's my favorite. I read it actually last night and I was like, this is great. And one of the reasons I wanted to read it is because, aside from it being hilarious, is because we have, 10 million, $20 million companies that don't take 3 million off of the business each year. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a really relevant point to highlight to entrepreneurs that listen, where they're like, oh my God, this company's doing, 10 million a year. And it's like, yeah, but you don't realize that they have a 5% margin or a 10% margin. Yeah. So I like the idea of measuring take home versus top line.
Versus big dick.
Exactly. Hilarious. So I want to dig into that business and what generates that revenue. But before we get there, can you give me sort of origin story backdrop?
Yeah, so I never planned to be a business owner or an entrepreneur. And my goal was always to be an asset manager. So I went and got an asset management job at the age of 18. And I just realized, you know what? I'm actually totally unemployable, because they were getting me to stick by this really, really structured schedule. And I placed a lot of judgment on myself in the fact that I just couldn't enjoy it. And I couldn't seem to understand how everybody around me enjoyed that job, despite the fact that they were making a ton of money. All I wanted to do was go and work out at the gym, because there was a really nice gym opposite from my office and I could see it through those beautiful, floor to ceiling windows, right? And so at the same time, I had a fitness Instagram account, and I'd made that account because I'd actually lost 50 pounds. So as a kid, I was never obese, but I was significantly overweight. And I really this one day, I decided I need to just lose weight. And so I just changed something in my mind, and I just unfortunately went down a really unhealthy fat loss journey, where it's kind of like when people get first into business, they sabotage everything else in their life to only focus on their business. They destroy a ton of relationships and they just do business all day long. That was me, but for fitness. And so I lost a lot of weight really quickly, and I started having panic attacks every day. And at the age of 16 and 17, that's quite rare to be having panic attacks. And I remember driving home from the gym one day because I was trying to do a session, but I just couldn't breathe properly because I was having a panic attack, essentially a long, drawn-out panic attack for multiple days. And I just thought to myself, you know what? I want to be successful. I'd already decided that when I was younger, because my brother, that's 2 years younger than me, has epilepsy and autism. So he's in a wheelchair, and he had literally had his freedom stripped away from him at birth. And so through growing up with that and through seeing that, I really had this desire to create freedom for myself and to make the most of my life, because I'd seen someone that actually physically and literally could not. And so I realized I right now, through the actions I'm taking, through being overly obsessed with this one thing, which for me was fitness, I am sabotaging my own potential freedom
Mm.
in the pursuit of a goal. And at that moment, I realized that was not what I wanted to do. And so essentially then I changed my life and I decided that I wanted to actually get healthy, which is how I created this Instagram account. And the reason why that's relevant is because when I quit my asset management job, even though I'd only been doing it for a year, I had this fitness page to fall back on that I'd just been giving to, and I'd never got anyone to pay me any money. And so then I put together a fitness program and I launched that. And that was when I was about 19 years old. And so I just somehow, I don't know how, but I found Pat Flynn's Smart Passive Income podcast.
Love it.
And they were talking about webinars. And so I learned, okay, I can create a webinar. I can get people to sign up to an email list. Like, what is that? And I found this whole world of digital marketing. And essentially that's slowly but surely how I ended up here.
Crazy. Well, that's a phenomenal lesson to get when you're 16, 17, 18.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most people don't have any ambition of, I think it's changed over time, but certainly in the US, the narrative has always been work hard, plan for retirement.
Yeah.
That's the game.
Yeah.
Right. And that's changing over time through mechanisms like this. But tell me about the initial transition out of the job. Like, what was the size of the Instagram page at the time? Was that actually the plan? Did you have money before you quit, or did you just say, fuck it, I'm going?
So I was making £18,000 a year.
Wow.
And this was supposedly, okay, this is one of the biggest asset management companies in the UK. And I really sacrificed potential earning in favor of the title. Because to be able to say that you work at that company at such a young age, I was the youngest person that they had ever hired in 50 years. Because back then you could hire people who were like 16. But in that period of time, things had really, really changed. So it was very much an ego play to be able to tell my dad I finally got a job in finance, because his dream that he always said to me is he wished that he went and worked in finance. And I think that was, until a few years ago, something that was a big regret for him, because he worked in property in the UK. He had a small real estate company, like a brokerage, not, one of these giant multi-million real estate portfolios or whatever, like a small company making a couple $100,000 a year, which is decent.
Yep.
But when finally I quit that job and made it happen through my own business, and he was able to learn from me that the reason why I had the balls to go ahead and actually build my own business, because he had his own business and I always saw him running his own thing, he finally realized, thank God that he didn't go into finance, because otherwise I never would have been able to have done this. And he saw how miserable I was when I was working in that job. Actually, funny story. So I remember one time I got back from the train station, because you have to, in England, it's very normal to commute using the train. So I get back and it's like 8 p.m. and I am knackered. I'm so tired. And I remember I went upstairs and I just sat down on the toilet, and for some reason, I grabbed my phone, right? Let's be honest. Everybody goes on their phone while they're taking a pee. And I just dropped my phone in the toilet by accident. And I just remember like crying and crying and crying and crying. And I'm never someone that cries. And I just remember thinking that the next day at work, I wasn't going to be able to go on my phone and check Instagram, because that was the one thing that was keeping me motivated throughout my days, because it was honestly so miserable at that job. And so I honestly had no intentions for anything. I literally had no idea what I was going to do. I had a place at university that I had deferred. So I was supposed to be studying economics. And it was at a very good uni in the UK. And I remember going on the website and just thinking, I really need my own business. And if I study economics, I'm just going to end up back in another corporate job. And I am not doing that. As we already decided, I'm unemployable. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs can resonate with being that way. So I called them up, and I kind of fancied myself as a bit of a salesperson at this stage, right? Because I'd been having some experience making negotiations with the fund managers to try and get them to stop being so aggressive to me. And I've been studying some negotiations. So I called the uni and I was like, hey, I am supposed to be doing economics. However, I've been working in this asset management job for the last year or so, and I want to study sports science because this, and this regarding fitness. And they told me no. So then I go on the website and I was like, okay, because I physically couldn't do it because I didn't have the right degrees. And so this is how outdated these systems are. Just because I didn't have the right exams that I'd done when I was 18 years old.
Got it. You
So-
hadn't gone through the right classes or whatever.
Yeah,
to-
so they didn't let me do the degree that I wanted. So I think it's so crazy that at that age you have to make one decision once when you're 16 for the rest of your life.
yeah.
But anyway, so so I went on the website and it said UK's #1 business degree. So I was able to convince them to let me switch to that degree, which then I thought would help me with my fitness business. But I get to the university and I'm in a lecture regarding accounting and tax. And it was all about UK tax and accounting. And at this point, I'd already been selling online fitness coaching. And I go to the front of the class and I ask the guy, I'm like, okay, I just realized I need to pay tax because I didn't realize by that point. And so I asked my lecturer at uni, please, can you help me figure out how to pay my taxes? Because I have customers in America, Australia, all around Europe. What do I need to do? And he closes this big booklet that he had in front of him. And he looks at me really close and he says, that would be a good question for Google, Lauren.
Wow.
And I just remember at that moment thinking, yeah, this is an absolute waste of my time. So I quit and then I just did my own thing.
Yeah. Well, that he sounds like an asshole. And
Oh, and by the way, I did some research on him and he had never worked in a company, never had his own business. He'd been making textbooks his whole entire life.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is the nightmare of traditional education. And it's not the case in all institutions, right? But it certainly is the case in many. Yeah. And I feel the same way about government, where it's like the narrative is if you can't hack it in private industry, then you go into government or you go into education. And it's not universally true, but man, there's a reason that those stereotypes exist. So at that point, you had the fitness thing going. At some point, you transitioned into the current business.
Yeah.
What was the size and scope, and why did you transition? Because it sounds like you were self-sustaining. And maybe not killing it, but doing fine with the fitness business. And you were doing fitness courses?
Yeah, exactly. So I was helping people learn how to track macros and then do weight training as a woman. And I was doing really well considering I was 20, 21, 22. I was making multiple six figures in profit per year. And it just everything felt so easy. And if I do often think if I could go back to running that business now, honestly, I think I would. I think I would make that trade just because when you're someone with a big audience on social media, they give you everything for free. They don't even expect you to post about it. So I would get these vacations anywhere and they would invite me. I didn't have to pay a penny. I went to Bali once for 3 weeks. Everything was paid for except the flights, everything. But I had credit card points, so I got the flights for free as well. So it was a really good life back then. And so I never once tracked, leads or conversions or sales or nothing. I just looked at my bank account every single week and is it going up? And if it was, then I was happy. If it wasn't, then I wasn't even that stressed because I didn't really have much expenses. I was a young single girl. And so this was a really good time for me. This is like probably when I'm older, this is like the glory days. And so.
Well, I want to talk about that part of it because one of the things that I find sort of perpetually fascinating about the world that we live in today as it pertains to content is you can do things like that where it's, a couple or a few $100,000 a year without really having a business, right? You're not tracking metrics. You're not deliberately doing much of anything. And it's just working.
Yeah.
What were you selling and how were you getting leads then? Because I want to talk about the transition to, the shift to the current business, but what were you doing then to generate? It's not like you found Pat Flynn. So you found some internet marketing stuff.
Yeah.
What were you doing to make that business work at the time?
Okay. So back then I had just one thing that I was selling, which was essentially a coaching membership. So people could come in and they would pay between $49 and $79 a month, pounds a month. I was doing it all in pounds because I didn't think that, the USD is the global currency that people use. Excuse me.
I don't even have any idea what the conversion rate is on that now.
Well, back then it was good because I made more money than I would have if it was in dollars, because obviously the pound was significantly stronger back then.
Yeah.
These days it's
A
pretty
little
crap.
stronger,
I don't
right?
know exactly what it is now. But so I was selling this membership, and what I would do is I would just try and I would consistently try and go viral. That was all I was trying to do. How can I get my Instagram posts to go viral?
Yeah.
Because Instagram was the platform back then. If I was doing it now, it would most likely be TikTok. If it was in 3 years, who knows what platform it's going to be. So that's it. I would literally just get people to go into the link in my bio and then sign up for the thing. It was really simple. I did not really try and do much. Then I learned about all the webinars and everything like that. And that was when I started being more intentional about growing an email list. But I do think as entrepreneurs, especially a lot of what we see, people put so much pressure on themselves constantly all the time to be, just building these crazy gigantic operations that for the most part might not even be necessary. I just think that I was very fortunate early on to have a dose of what's possible without having a gigantic operation. Because I think if you're trying to build, and I think, you know, the guys from Andreessen Horowitz talk about this a lot, but those who are innovators, who are really trying to expand the industry and change things up, like what you're doing, right? That's very much something where you need a large operation. You really need a lot of people on the team to be able to build and scale and grow and develop. But a lot of people that you and I know, for example, internet marketers, I don't think they need to have as crazy of an operation as they do have, because a lot of it's just excess complexity. And when you really look at what's actually bringing in results and what's actually generating revenue for your business, half of the stuff that you're doing doesn't even matter. I mean, I know these guys with these giant social media teams, and then when they look at like, is that actually bringing in any leads or revenue for your business? Maybe it's growing their email list by like 20 emails a week. It's just so much work just for absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I think that's a good lesson in general is why are you taking the actions that you're taking?
Yeah.
And very often with businesses, as they grow, they push the envelope to satisfy somebody that's not really the target market anyway. So they're chasing a shiny object, right? They're chasing a big client, and they modify their existing structure to cater to somebody that isn't in their core avatar, and spend all this time and energy to add that feature set. And it's like you could have just spent the energy on the core market and amplified more there.
Yeah. Or even more dangerously, it's to appease your peers.
Oh God. Yeah. Well, in the social space, for sure. Right. When you're looking at visible tracking of views and clicks and look at me, right? Yeah, that's interesting. So, okay. So what was the transition? So you were doing the fitness thing. Why change? And what changed?
Yeah, so good question. And sorry for not closing the loop. So so basically I would always get invited to these fitness conferences. And I think this is where taking feedback from the market is really important, because at these fitness conferences, all of my friends would be invited to do workout classes. And I would never get invited to teach the workout class. They would always ask me to talk about social media. And I was always really envious of them because I wanted to do the class. It was really fun. But then I would do the talk on the social media and people really liked it. And these owners of companies like direct to consumer, physical product, food companies, or clothing brands, they would always come up to me and ask me a ton of questions. And I remember one time this one guy came up to me who had a blood testing kit. So they take your blood sample, they ship it away, and then they give you, you know, what are your hormones, how's your vitamin D, etc., all of that stuff. And he said to me, okay, so like, how can I hire you for my marketing? And I was like, well, I have my own business. I'm not looking to be hired. And he was like, no, how can I hire you for consulting? And I was like, is that the same thing as a consultant? I had no idea what is consulting.
Right.
And so I remember saying, okay, give me your email address. I'm going to send you a pitch deck. So I just thought in my head, pitch deck. Okay, maybe that's the right thing to do. So I created this proposal for him and I told him I would do it for £1,000 a month, £1,000 a month. And he said yes. And so I was like, crap. Because I couldn't think how much to charge. And I just thought 1,000 sounded like a nice amount of extra money to be making. So eventually what I ended up doing is I just set up a call with him once a week and I would just guide him on what he should be doing to get leads using social media. Because they were already doing stuff on social. They were already running ads. Now, I knew nothing about ads at that time. However, they just primarily wanted to focus on connecting better with their target audience. And their target audience was the same target audience that I had through my social content. So through connecting the dots like that, I realized, number one, I hate working one-on-one with clients at this capacity. It's not interesting for me. And the second thing was, maybe there's something to this helping people with social media game. And so a few of my friends were massive influencers. One of them had 800,000 on YouTube, right? So subscribers, way more engaged than if it was just Instagram or something. And the others had a few 100,000 too. And essentially, we were all sponsored by this company called Gymshark. And so Gymshark is a big fitness brand. And they were all paying us a salary each month. Okay. So can you imagine, like, the influencer life is like an easy life. Okay. So you just make a few posts on social for the brand, you make yourself look good, and then boom, that's it. But that's all they were doing. They didn't have any other income streams.
Yeah.
And so I was obviously making decent cash from my fitness coaching business. And it was just me and a team of a video editor and a community manager. So it was only me and two others. And so I said to them, okay, well, because they turned to me, they were like, Lauren, how are you still traveling and everything? Like, hook me up with whoever this company is that's giving you a trip for free. And this time I was actually paying. And I told them, like, yeah, I think things have dried up, like less free trips these days, you know, just paid for it for me and a couple of my friends. They were like, what? How are you paying for like such a good holiday? And so I told them, oh, I'm selling these fitness challenges. They were like, what? How do I do that? And I was thinking in my head, how are you guys not doing a fitness business because you have such a big audience? But some people who are naturally with a big audience, they don't think more operationally. They don't think about generating money because everything's free. It's so easy.
Yeah.
So I gave them my share funnel because I thought if I give them my funnel, then I'm gonna make $30 a month on affiliate commission. And yeah, they launched it, and some of these guys make like 20K in their first launch. And so I thought, cool, imagine if I'd had a cut of that. I should have like taken a revenue share or something. But then I just thought, nah, you know what? Like, I was comfortable, right? Everything was easy for me. So for a few years, I did nothing of it. And then finally, I saw this one guy, a friend of mine, Iman Ghazi, who is really famous now. But back then, I knew him since he was like 11. And he was selling a course on how to build a personal brand. And he had like 10,000 followers on Instagram. And I thought, this guy, if he could do it, so can I. So I just whipped together a course and I launched it. And that was essentially how I eventually made the transition. Yeah.
Wild. Yeah, you know, there's definitely, I think about that, the construct of the influencer not realizing that they're sitting on a pile of gold, like not knowing how to monetize, is sort of the same as it's very common to find restaurants on the coast, like with amazing views, that are mediocre as fuck. Because they don't have pressure to create a good menu and a good experience because the view is so good.
Yeah.
It works anyway.
So true.
And so the people that I'm most impressed with operationally are those that on some level are forced to dial it, right? And it's one of the reasons that the adult industry is so interesting from a marketing perspective, because it's so competitive, because everybody likes naked people. So the marketing is cutting edge all the time because it's so competitive. They have to figure it out. So you figured something out and you made the transition. Did you abandon the fitness thing at that point?
For a long time, no. And it was a big mistake that I didn't, because I was trying to be two different people. So I was talking to two audiences. One was, because back then I didn't help generally with people that want to sell their knowledge online. It was really anyone who wanted to build an online fitness coaching business. So I was still trying to stay niche. However, I still had all these fitness people. I had like fitness people following me. I had like people that wanted to lose weight following me. It was all very confusing. But the interesting thing was, and the reason why I think this is actually potentially a cool move for someone who is, let's say, doing, you know, a direct to consumer type of play right now, and then moving to business, the business side of things, is so many of the people that had been through my fitness stuff, then 2 or 3 years later came to me for how to become an online fitness coach, because they'd had such a life-changing experience. And that was a pretty cool realization in seeing, wow, I changed someone's life so much that they went from super unhappy with their body to absolutely loving health and fitness, to the point where they want to be able to now help other people go through that same transformation. And so that then just became innately more rewarding to me, because I realized that I could then make an impact through other people rather than me just doing it directly myself. But just on that note that you were saying before, So I think a really good business, and I saw one of my friends do this. His name is Sean, and he has this company where they essentially take a percentage of influencers' brand names, as it were, and they scale them up. And so I think that there are so many influencers out there who actually need that. It just comes down to them being able to trust in you, because influencers are pitched so many times a day on, hey, let me build your business for you and I'll make you a ton of money. But it just sounds really, really unachievable. But I think if there was like a backbone in which it can be done without the influencer even feeling like someone is taking a cut of their business, that would be a really cool business. And that's something that I've considered potentially doing in the future, because it's something that I know that I'm really, really good at, and is definitely very, very, very profitable. But influencers can be hard to work with.
Yeah, well, that's the, I mean, talent, creatives are hard to work with, right? It's just a lifelong, reality. And it goes back to, I think, all of Hollywood. You can always point to this, right? It's, you've got business people and creative people, and there's some working together and how you figure that out. But I think the challenge in that business model is that when people get very good, they tend to just do it all themselves. And you're with almost all marketing agencies, the graduated path of success in a marketing agency is inevitably doing your own products, because you realize that if you've perfected everything up to that point, where you get the rest of the margin is doing your own products,
Totally.
i.e. your own content in this case, right? And it's the same thing with influencers as it is with any other business. But the starting point for marketing agency is like, let me take other people's money to figure it out. And then you learn with other people's money. And that's great from an agency perspective, and generally not great for the business in aggressive spaces, right? And then as they get better, they charge more, and eventually the really good ones do exactly what you just said, which is they share revenue. But it's hard to find the good ones that share revenue.
Yep, definitely have learned and experienced it from that sense. But you know what? I think as well, there's also on the other side of things, this massive interest right now on people taking a stake of other companies and just doing a rev share. But then I also think I'm seeing a lot of people shoot themselves in the foot because they try and do it too soon before they've become good enough to actually do that. Because they think to start, the best way to do it would be a rev share. But at the end of the day, if you're not that good yet, doing a rev share isn't going to be good for you, because you're not going to actually make any revenue. So I always think that, for me personally, I think it was good that I started with my own thing, because I was not putting anyone else's company under any risk. And I knew that I was good in fitness. And the worst that I could do is help someone lose weight too quickly, as an example, or in the health and fitness space, I think at the end of the day, it's very hard for people to create change anyway. And so I think it's for me at least, it was a safe kind of battle testing ground to be able to sharpen the axes, as it were, when it came to business, because you have to really understand psychology. Because to get people to buy into something that is against their innate desire, which is to do things that are hard, it's really, really challenging.
Sure. Well, in the fitness space in particular, when you look at different markets, is just a tremendously competitive market, because
but back then it wasn't.
In that space, maybe not.
Right.
But we our director of marketing, actually, who is sitting in the other room, maybe not so much staring at us, did the marketing for Tybo Fitness, which was like decades ago. This guy Billy Blanks did infomercials, but that thing has existed forever. It's just, every time we go through a new platform, you started by saying, it was Instagram and now it's TikTok, and who knows what it's going to be. Well, for a very long time, it was infomercials. Right? And there was this whole engine around infomercials and fitness influencers, but it keeps transforming, right? Transitioning.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that. Isn't that how Tony Robbins got his fame?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, in before infomercials, Tony was doing little live events where he would do these pop-ups in his hometown and around, and he would just run newspaper ads and get people in a room at a hotel and give them a motivational seminar for 20 people.
So interesting. So this is one of the things that I speak about often with my team, because I feel like there's constantly this battle between marketing and then the rest of my company. And so we always discuss this all the time, because marketing is like the one area of the business where you always have to consistently stay ahead of the curve and adapt all the time and change things in a reactive manner based upon the customer and the market feedback. And so it kind of drives like my operational team crazy
Mm.
because we'll get this massive like feedback survey response from our customers, and then we'll do a live launch to our audience, and then it doesn't go how we wanted it to. So then they survey the people, and we find out that the reason why it didn't go this way is because we were trying to market this thing when they actually wanted to buy this other thing. And so then my ops team has already planned this entire campaign for the rest of the year, and then my marketing team comes in and changes everything. But it's just a fact that marketing, ultimately, the philosophy stayed the same, but the platforms changed consistently. And it's something that, it's been a real learning curve for the more operational focused minds on my team to be able to try and understand that, because they want to build the structure.
Sure. So I want to talk about that part of it, because you move from fitness to functionally like business opportunity. How do you create a business online? And you mentioned that you didn't get rid of the fitness, and kind of the logical progression was that the people that had succeeded with the fitness product then thought, oh, I could create a business out of this. And so that jump makes sense. But when you shift over to just business content and you're just focused on helping people build businesses, what content you produce theoretically is different, and how you go about the whole thing, but it's a different space. So first and foremost, how do you drive leads for that business? And can you give us some idea of size, scope, frame of just how that works for you?
Yeah. So first of all, I never thought potentially that the fitness clients would become the biz op clients.
Right.
Never. So for me, I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and they said to me, Lauren, it's really weird how you never had any intentionality behind anything that you're doing today. I was like, I don't know if that's a compliment or not. So thanks. And it was true, because it just happened for me really, really organically. Because like I said, in the beginning, I never intended to have a business. For me, it was kind of by accident. So now I see people starting their social media platforms and like their personal brands through trying to scale their business through their personal brand. And it's like the opposite way around of how I did it. And I understand both. I mean, it's the same thing at the end of the day. It's just that I never had a business in the beginning. So on that note though, so essentially what I did in order to pivot is that I had a few people just ask me, well, I see what you're doing, but I have like a productivity business. Does it work with that? Or I see what you're doing, but like I train construction people how to scale their construction company. And I thought, I don't think it works, but if you want to join, like I'm running around starting like in a couple of weeks, just join for free and like, let's see if it works. So I got these couple of people in, and there was this one girl, Francesca, who had this productivity business. She was making like 6,000 euros a month, and she scaled to 25K per month. And I just thought that that was really cool and proof that it didn't just work in fitness, but I didn't want to just hope and pray that just because one girl it worked for, it would work for the others, because the construction guy it didn't work for. And so I thought, okay, well, I must not be good enough. And I had all these like doubts in my mind. So I just kept doing what I was doing. And then finally one day, I had so many people asking me about social media. I launched a separate business to scale social media. And then I created a lead generation agency. And then I was just doing all these different things that at one point I realized, like, I have so many different clients, and this is all over like a 2-year period. I have so many different customers and so many different things. I just need to compile it all into one. And that was in 2019. Then obviously in 2020, the lockdowns and everything, everybody wanted to take their business online. And we were only at that point working with those that essentially were selling their knowledge online. So primarily people that had been doing in-person training workshops on, let's say, tax planning, right? I had a few clients that were doing that. And then I had some that were personal trainers. And I had all these various different customers who then...
Beyond a Million is brought to you by Easy Pay Direct. If you're an entrepreneur and you are still using a product like Stripe or PayPal to accept payments, it is time to find out why the largest names in your industry would never consider doing that. Check out easypaydirect.com/BAM to find out more.
In 2020, it just logically made sense to us for us to double down on what we were dabbling in 2019. And so then we were able to just take what I was doing in fitness and systematize it. It's very much the same. It is very much the same. The only difference is the way in which they deliver to their customers. Obviously, if you have fitness, it's more, personal workout programs. If it's in anything else, it's whatever you're teaching.
Yeah, sure.
So how do we get leads for that? We were running live trainings. Still same thing as what I do now. So every single month I do a live webinar, and what we do is that's to our organic audience. And so the vehicle in which we get top of the funnel leads changes all the time. Right now, I'm actually not running ads. We're still doing everything organically. But that's again because like I personally love organic. So this is like my own selfish reason why I'm still doing that. But
Sure.
we are going to start running ads soon to all the marketing people listening, all the paid marketing people. But yes, we run a live training on a topic that we've been hearing a lot in sales. And then basically we just, bosh all the objections in there, and then we get them to apply. And then we have them put $100 down to get on a sales call with us. And then someone from my team takes a sales call and then closes them into a membership. So it's a very similar model to what I was doing about 5 or 6 years ago in fitness. It's just that back then we didn't have them pay for a sales call. Back then I was just closing through the DMs. Over the last few years, I've been primarily closing fully through the DMs. But right now, what I realize is that I would rather have a business in which there's a longer retention. So I realized like we had more of like a one night stand business versus a marriage business, and because we were just selling to new people all the time and we had no retention. And back in fitness, I had a really great retention, whereas that was a more enjoyable business to run. So I thought, what was I doing back then that would be really applicable now? So now I've shifted into more of like a monthly recurring revenue type of model, which has been really, really beneficial to me personally, because before every single month we would start at zero. Because you'd made the sales in the previous month, sure, there was payment plans coming in, but at the end of the day, they're only lasting a maximum of 6 months. And then we just didn't have anything to sell after, because after they were done and they didn't really need us anymore. But the level in which this, the skills of the team is essentially the level of which, a customer can potentially stay with you for. And so we realized it was on us and it was our problem that we weren't skilled enough to take them to the next level. So that's essentially what we've been fixing over the last year.
So it sounds like when you said the skills of the team is what ultimately increased the lifetime value of the customer.
Yeah.
So support related problem or that you just didn't have another product?
More like strategically, it was twofold. It was like a mindset block of the team thinking that we shouldn't sell anything else to them because we are not the right ones for them to stay on with, because we can get them to a certain level, but we can't get them beyond. But then when we actually really looked at it, that was fundamentally incorrect and that was fundamentally not true. It's just that we weren't putting our heart and soul into creating the product in which they would need to get to the next level. So it wasn't a knowledge and skill gap, really. It was a mental gap in the fact that the team who was leading customer success didn't believe that we had what we actually did have, because we hadn't created it. So we had it was just in their heads, and it was in the client results and the steps that we'd taken one-on-one with clients. It just wasn't packaged up into a formula. And so essentially we got everyone who was doing one-on-one client work to literally go through their top 20 clients they'd work with, the results that they've got for those best clients, and go through from start to end exactly what they did. So we had these massive Google Docs, each like 20, 30 pages, breaking down like exact steps. And then from there, we've done this over about an 8-month period. Like we boiled it down into essentially the formula in which anybody would need to take in order to ascend through those like revenue stages. But we typically don't work with people who in this business are scaling past like 100, 200K per month on the business where they sell their knowledge online. A lot of our customers have other companies, but from their online business, we don't really work with clients beyond that level right now.
Got it. So it's creating the initial products.
Yes, but for them, that's a lot of money in this business, because their other companies are, very capital intensive. Like some of them have real estate businesses where all their money is tied up in projects. Some of them have, brick and mortar locations of like chiropractor companies. And so their profit margins is like 10, 20, 30%. So they really like this because their margins is like 80, 90%.
Sure. Yeah. Well, look, also the size of the audience is so much bigger than, so Easy Pay Direct serves small businesses as well as sort of mid-market and larger businesses, but our marketing energy goes towards companies that are 1 to 50 million in revenue. And as soon as you get to, even at 1, but when you get to 10 million a year plus, the market just compresses. It just shrinks. There just aren't as many businesses. And so when you look at the size of the audience that you can find somebody that has expertise and help them operationalize the expertise to create revenue,
exactly,
it's just much bigger.
Yeah.
But so my big question there is, well, I want to highlight one thing you said, which I think is really cool. When you're creating the webinars, you're looking at the objections that you've heard through the sales process already to decide what you're going to talk about. Yeah. And I think that's awesome. And like, that's an ongoing lesson that people can take. But it still begs this question of how do you think about top of funnel and what content you create, period? because you grew up creating a bunch of fitness content, and some of that dominoed into the biz op space. But now, do you deliberately create, because it's still all organic, so do you deliberately create business content? Do you also create more social content? Like, how do you think about your approach to content creation as a top of funnel strategy that you know you're trying to convert later?
Yeah, so there's really 3 types of content that I create. So the first one, if we start with like the most bottom of the funnel content, so that's really where it's like, I call it intent trigger content. So it's where I want people to come towards the company and just say, hey, I want to be your client, I want to give you money right now. And so most people just never even do this type of content because they think social media is social media, but I see social media as business media. And so when you actually make content like where you're getting people to actually say, hey, I'm interested in getting this right now, then they come towards you with in their mind that they want to join and start working with you. So for example, like you may want to say something, let's say for you guys, right? Like, are you sick of other payment processors blocking you or taking away your funds? Send me a message saying the word info and let's talk about how Easy Pay Direct can save you from your payment processing woes once and for all. Okay, something like that.
I'm totally running that as an ad.
Yeah, exactly. And well, it also works for ads as well, by the way.
Yeah, totally.
But then basically, like if someone messages you, you can just have an automation on the back end whereby when they send you the word info, you can reply back to them like, Jack, great to hear from you. Shoot me your best email and I'll have somebody from my team send you over all the information. They send their email address. Another response from the bot says like, sweet, thanks. I've just had Anna from my team send that through to you. Could you check your email for me to make sure you've got it? Check spam as well, just in case. At the same time, the automation emails Jack from Anna saying, hey, it's Anna here from Easy Pay Direct. Whatever your thing would be. So maybe it'll be to schedule a call. Maybe it'll be for them to fill out an application. I don't know what it is for you, but whatever it is, we personally like them having an application so that then can go through into our CRM with all the information so that we can either qualify them or disqualify them and then give them something for free if we do disqualify them. And so that could just be a really, really simple piece of content that you post once a week. And if you find something that works, just keep posting it again and again and again. I have this one Instagram story that whenever I post it, normally on average, I'll get like 4,000 to 5,000 views on my Instagram stories. This one takes it up to 15,000 to 20,000 every single time. This is a middle of the funnel content, actually. This one is not bottom. So this middle of the funnel content says, I put together a brand new free training on exactly how to get leads on social media. So it says something like that. And then it's like, it's a blueprint designed to increase your reach. It's 100% free. Comment the word access and I'll send it through to you. Something like that. I can't remember exactly what it says, but it says something like that. And the reason why it gets so much additional organic reach is because so many people start replying. Right? So it's just a photo of me and then there's text on the top and then people start replying to it. That then pushes it out to more people in your audience. So that's like one story. No other, I delete everything else and I just have that one story up, because if there was a story up before and then half of the people drop before watching the next story, then Instagram is seeing like a 50% drop off rate. So that's obviously not good. Again, that's quite tactical and obviously algorithms change. So I wouldn't, if you're listening to this in like 2025 or beyond, then it may not be relevant anymore. But what works is essentially the copy where it's just like saying, I've recently put together a brand new free training on whatever it is, and then give some context. Like it's a blueprint to whatever the outcome is. Do you want access 100% free? ? Comment and reply the word, whatever it is, and I'll send it to you. And the automations are what do the magic, because then you don't have to do anything.
Yeah. So, and that's stories specifically.
This is stories, yeah. But this also works on posts as well. Everything that I do, I put it on both stories and posts and videos as well, because you can just have like a random video of, I don't know, you cycling on your bike and you just put the text on top and then you put some music and then it's just the same content. Everything personally that I do is text first. And then I'll repurpose everything into videos. And then I have a separate team that does short form content. And the short form content is all designed to be top of the funnel content that I'll get into in a second. And the top of the funnel content is literally designed just to reach more people generally. It doesn't have to be more of the right people. The middle of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel is where I'm actually like focusing in on my people. Top of the funnel is just purely designed to reach like a mass market. And I don't necessarily care who I'm reaching, because just how organic social media works. You just need to continuously reach more people to then be able to eventually convert some of them into potential customers for your business.
So I'm with you on that, but the people tend to approach that different ways. So there's definitely, sort of like trend chasing, right? Let's talk about AI. Let's talk about, politics or whatever's in the news in the moment, right? But there is still a question of, some people are much more targeted in that than others. Is it truly for you anything is top of funnel, or do you care if they're potential clients at all? Or is that, in your mind, the top of funnel purely just to get the algorithm moving with you?
Yeah, so I've had a bit of a battle in my mind about this, because my personal preference when I'm creating the content myself is, and I do create all the content for my personal brand. I've tried hiring ghostwriters and stuff in the past, and it just doesn't feel right for me. So for the top of the funnel stuff, I always start everything with like a cocktail party brag. So let's say you're at a cocktail party and somebody comes up to you and they're like, oh, so tell me something crazy cool about you. And you had like a couple margaritas or something. And so you're feeling a little out there. And so you would just like, boom, tell them a fact about yourself that would literally make their jaw drop and be like, wow, that's so impressive. So it's kind of just an analogy, because obviously you probably just don't go up to people on the street and say something, random about yourself. But it would be something. So the one that works for me every single time that does really, really well is like, I became a millionaire by the age of 23 without OnlyFans, daddy's money, or multi-level marketing. Here are the 3 traits that made me a millionaire. Here are the 5 habits that made me a millionaire. Here's the exact business model that made me a millionaire. So I just changed the last sentence. And that's desirable for a lot of people because they want to become a millionaire. And it's also appealing to my people. So I like this for top of the funnel, because generally it brings in the right people. However, when it comes to video content, it's slightly different. So video content, you can't just like look at the camera and say, I became a millionaire. It sounds a little, for some reason works better when it's typed than when it's video. I don't know why, it just does. When you are acknowledging the fact as to why people should listen to you. In video, I think it's because of how people's minds work with short form content. They are just scrolling so fast. They aren't looking out for, why should I listen to you, as much. So as long as you speak with conviction in your video content, they do listen to you, which is kind of terrifying at some moments, because who knows who all these young kids are actually paying attention to just because they're speaking with so much certainty.
Sure.
But in the video content, it can literally be anything. I mean, I had this one video go viral where I was saying, and I was speaking with a lot of certainty, because I was in Dubai, and obviously, I'm based there. There was like yachts behind me. And I was saying, like, in Dubai, it's normal to make 10 million a year. And obviously I'm speaking like in my friend circles. A lot of people I know making 10 million a year in their business there. And that is like, when I'm there, I feel like super broke all the time. And so obviously people on the internet are thinking like, oh, this girl is full of shit, or, oh, wow, that's crazy. Like, that must be so true. So the comments then start going crazy and people start replying to each other and it just goes super viral, but for maybe the wrong reasons. So I personally don't like that type of content for that reason, because it doesn't necessarily add any value. However, if you want to reach more people, which in organic is really important, because let me tell you, like, after that one video that got a few million views on Instagram, that grew my audience by 2,000. And out of that 2,000, my engagement for the next few weeks was a lot higher than normal. So there's pros and cons to it both. It just depends upon what you want. And personally, I am right now testing both. So I don't have a defined outcome on what I think is best yet.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an interesting game. I always like getting people's opinions on it. And for you, as organic is the mechanism through which you're converting, it is all about the conversion ultimately, right? Yeah. So going down the chain for sales, you mentioned that you used to go and sell only in DMs.
Yeah.
And now you pull it to a call. And you said at the time that you did it because you thought that it created a stickier customer, maybe a longer term relationship.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Yeah. So to be honest, if we can, I would still love to fully be selling through the DMs. The thing is that at this stage and phase of my business is I'm genuinely really vetting out potential clients that aren't going to be a good fit. Because what we used to do is we used to sell between 25 to 100K directly through the DMs. And I have a ton of DM conversations. Like I showed some guys, like, because they were obviously like, oh, I don't believe that you can do this. I was actually at a mastermind and I closed them on 50K paid in full. And I just showed them, I was like, yeah, I do this all the time. So it definitely can be done. And I think if anyone says that you can't close high ticket in the DMs, you just don't have the right approach, because it's actually not that difficult. And as long as you're tracking all the people that you're speaking to, it's very easy to remember who to follow up with, because you're going to have a list of, let's say, 50 to 100 people, maybe even less, that are really high intent customers that want to pay you money. And if you're selling something for a high price, then it's actually worth your time following up with them. Whereas what we're doing now is we're going for a less high upfront payment, and we're only charging $1,200 every 4 weeks for this one primary thing that I'm focusing on at the moment. Obviously, we're still selling higher price stuff, but it's just not our pure focus, because as the founder of the company, like my goal is to get this one thing working. So I'm just obsessing on like figuring this out. And in order to do that, I know that if we are having an actual interview with somebody, then we can vet them and we can see, are they actually going to be, you know, are they BSing? Are they somebody who just kind of wants to come in for like 1 month and then leave? Are they going to actually show up once we do let them in? Because we're going for more of like a group community-based model. So whereas before every client would have just one-on-one interaction with us and there was no community at all, now we have just the community. And there's no one-on-one except an onboarding call. And so it's just a different vibe, and we need to make sure that they are actually going to be more of a self-sufficient type of person. So that's why we're selling on an interview versus selling through the DMs. Now, I do think that we will systematize it to sell it through the DMs, but we're going to do it through the Impact School accounts rather than my own personal accounts, because we want to be able to build it where it's not built all around me.
Right. Well, then, you know, that introduces a whole nother question. So in prep for this, I looked at one of the, I think maybe it's even at the core Impact School site, and you have the VSL, the video that sells the initial thing. One of the things that you say in the VSL is, this isn't for you if you're afraid to get in front of a camera and be the face of the brand.
Yeah.
And now you're like, fuck, I don't want to be the face of the brand anymore. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so it's not really that I don't want to be. It's
Right.
just that like I think that I've made really nice like cash flow from my business over the last few years. I want to go down like a new adventure whereby my goal would be to build a business which doesn't rely on me, so that I can do that again in multiple different other vehicles in the future, rather than just always like my interests change and then my business changes.
Sure.
Right? Because it's not necessarily like sustainable. And also I started when I was young. Whereas the customers that we work with, it's kind of interesting. Like we have a very specific clientele, and they tend to be, there's really two set groups of people. One of them, I like refer to them as more like agency bros. So they're more like marketers, people that are really, really good at digital, but they aren't necessarily as good at getting their own business in check as they are at making money for other companies. So that's one group. And then the second group are like really, really experienced people who are a little older, and they've had a ton of background in their own companies. Like I have this one client, she's taken 2 of her own businesses to more than 100 million in annual revenue each. They were like physical location ski chalet kind of resorts. And so she's really smart and obviously business savvy, but she wants to build an online thing.
Right.
So those are the two groups. And so the type of client that we're working with, they do want to build the personal brand. They do want to be like the guru, the expert, the person at the front of the business. Yeah, for me personally, I'm fine doing it and I enjoy doing it. It's just that I would like to know with certainty that my business can also function without always me needing to make content. Because I've done it for a long time and I think I've really, really mastered it. So maybe again, it's just this one thing where I'm getting like itchy feet and I want to get a new exciting challenge. Maybe that's also a mental block for me.
Yeah, well, I think it's I appreciate the transparency. I mean, that's the game, right? Certainly. And you can, there's no question about it. The capacity to build something massive on just personal brand is there. Yeah. And it comes to the limitations that you just said, which is it's dependent on your face. Yeah. And, you know, in the era of AI, I suppose maybe we can overcome that with some bullshit videos that aren't really you, but
that's kind of scary though.
It is scary. It's terrifying.
I like called my dad and my mom because my phone was stolen when I was in Colombia just now. And it was literally stolen straight out of my hand. My phone screen was unlocked. And so I phoned them up and I was like, don't worry, I'm fine. Like I'm here, I'm good. Just to let you know, like I just lost my phone. Yeah. And my mom's like, you got your phone stolen, didn't you? I'm like, yeah. And I was like, but if somebody ever texts you asking you for money or telling you that like I'm in a big danger or something, we need to have a way so that like you know that this is actually me. So we came up with a solution, but it's actually quite terrifying, really, if you think about it, because it even happened where Noor from my team, because my credit card was stolen as well when my phone was stolen, so we had to get new company cards and everything and all this stuff. And so I said to her, can you please send me like the pin for this card? And then we had this rule as well. I was like, you need to remember, like anytime that something like this happens, you need to check with me to make sure that it's actually me. So yeah, we used the new system then, which was good. It was cool to see her do that.
Yeah, it's terrifying. So I want to talk about that for a minute. I want to shift and talk about sort of the lifestyle side of the perks of doing what you've done. So going back to the initial opening comment around 3 million net versus looking at top line revenue.
Yeah.
So I have a litany of clients and friends that are entrenched in the business and are there all the time and grinding all the time. And some of them love it. Some of them are like, shit, why am I so involved in the business and aiming to get out of it? How do you approach kind of day-to-day life? Because you're all over the place, right? You're heavy travel. Are you actually nomadic? Do you actually have a place or?
I live in Dubai.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't actually have a place right now. My lease expired. Like I would never buy in Dubai. It's like the most crazy real estate market ever. It's so turbulent there. But no, so right now I don't have like a place. However, I am a resident of Dubai, and that's like where I'm really based out of. Yeah.
Got it. But you bounce around all the time.
Yeah.
So how do you keep, do you keep normal hours? How do you approach sort of working on the road as a primary mechanism? Because for me, I know we have an office, we have staff here. Yeah. I'm driving, and I know that when I'm gone, things keep running, but and we've got a great team to do that. But it really disrupts my habits, my life, et cetera.
Right.
Do you have things in place that allow you to work remotely? Do you feel like you compromise the quality of your work when you're remote, or is it totally entrenched and you're just living that way and it works?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people get set in their own ways because I have never actually had an office for my business. I've always been fully online. Even back in the day when it was just like me and a couple others on my team, one of them was in Chile and then the other was in like North UK. So we never even saw each other in person except if I would go and shoot content with her like once or twice a month. So for me, I actually can't imagine having an office and a team physically in person with me because it's just not something that I've ever done. And back when I first started my business, I was really, really intentional in that I want this business to allow me to live the life that I want to live. And I don't want my business to drive how I'm living. So of course there are things that I have to do that I really don't want to do. Like when the bookkeeper sends me like a spreadsheet and I need to go through it because like I have to because I'm the business owner, which I still think I don't need to do it. I'm having some words with someone on my team about that, but those are the type of thing that I personally hate. And so every 2 weeks I do this thing which I call a revenue review. And a lot of people have spoke about this in books and stuff before as like a time audit. I just go one step deeper in that, like I look at everything that I'm doing hour by hour and I'll mark, is this making me money? Is this giving me energy or is this taking away my energy? And so next to every single thing that I'm doing in every hour increment, if it doesn't give me energy and if it doesn't make me money, and ideally just the energy stuff, like those are really the things that I want to be doing. Because if something's taking away my energy and it's making me money, I think that's a really dangerous place to be because you can stay in this cycle of doing things that you hate just because it makes you money. And I think that gives you a really, really negative mindset just towards life in general, because life isn't just about making all the money in the world. And so I've seen a ton of friends, and I'm sure you know a lot of people too, that make, tens and tens and tens of millions a year that are absolutely miserable. And I just never wanted that to be me. And so I really optimized to be able to be in like I put a plus sign next to the things that give me the energy. Like how can I stay in as much plus sign as possible? And how can I delegate the other stuff? Because if something makes me money, but it takes my energy, well, it's a money making task. So why don't I just pay someone to do it for me? because it's still going to make me money if I pay someone else to do it. So I've more just started to think about things from that sense. And so traveling doesn't affect me at all because I have these routines that I ingrained in my life. Yeah, honestly, a decade ago, which is in the morning, I'll get some type of movement. So whether that's going to the gym or taking a walk, every single day, no matter what, I do 15,000 steps a day. And then whenever I go out to eat at a restaurant, I just say no butter, no oil, put the sauce on the side, and then I'll just get something that's lean. And then I try to avoid eating something that's like really processed foods. And so that's how I'm able to stay healthy and like I have good energy. And I just eat as much protein as I possibly can. And so physically, that's how I stay in check. And then mentally, when it comes to working, yeah, I mean, I have these daily huddles with my team every day that I hate. This is like the worst thing for me just because I just hate stuff on my calendar, but it's something that I need to do because I'm running a business, right? Like you can't just do things that you want to be doing all the time. So I think it's just a balance between having the empty space on my calendar, doing the things that I need to do as a business owner and kind of just like, sucking it up and doing those things because I get so many other benefits from being the business owner. And yeah, it's a really tough question for me to answer because I just think that like a lot of people overthink it and you get into this mindset of, oh, I can't possibly travel because it's going to ruin everything for me. And I was thinking that about this time last year because I'd been in Dubai straight for like 8 months and I just didn't want to leave because I was in such a good flow. And so then finally, when I did leave, nothing bad happened. And it was quite nice to have a flight for like 12 hours where no one was bugging me because the Wi-Fi was really, really bad. And I could just, get an entire Google Doc done with a ton of ideas and strategy. So it's good as long as you know to book a place with good Wi-Fi, a quiet place with good AC, and ideally somewhere that's safe. Yeah.
What are a couple of those things that are profitable for you, but you hate doing and you do them anyway?
So for example, right now, I'm the only one in the team who's in this time zone. So I have my calendar open for sales calls if somebody is going to book into a call in those time zones. And I try and minimize the amount of time. So I have a couple hours open every day. And so if somebody books in on that, I'm like, because I just don't need to be the one doing it. And I feel like every time I'm taking it, I'm taking away an opportunity for my team because when we have a sales call booked, someone's already paid to get on the call with us. So you just get on the call and you just close them and you run their card. And so I know for me, I've done that. I must have taken 3,000 plus sales calls at this point. And so it's just like another one of those things that I've done so many times that it doesn't feel enjoyable for me. Whereas for my team, it's cool because, they get the high of closing a deal and it's fun for them. So it's kind of, that's one of those things. What else? That would be the main one for me, honestly. Yeah.
What are the things that you do that you enjoy and you do anyway, but they don't really produce revenue and you find yourself doing them all the time?
Yeah, like shit posting on social media. Like yesterday I made a post like, so as a Brit in Dubai, as a Brit in the USA, sorry, as a Brit in the USA, what do I do on Labor Day? And I just get so many people making such triggered comments. And I just love replying to those because it's so fun. They just American people get so emotional about everything. Yeah, it's so funny. And so sometimes I'll like make posts, I'll make comments like, yeah, but you guys have such crappy barbecues in America. And I reply like that. And then everyone's really actually upset with me. Yeah. It's quite funny.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's good. Yeah, no, but I commented back like, yeah, well, in the UK, our barbecues are way better. And then tons of UK people start applying, tons of USA people start applying. So
you get some angry Texans saying things like that.
Oh yeah. But no, that stuff, yeah. I mean, but at the end of the day, right? Like I think about this a lot because the stuff that doesn't make you money, that doesn't even really drive the business forward, but if it gives you energy as the founder, I think that that's really powerful because you show up as a better leader for your team. So I know that the days where I have taken a walk before I take my team call or I've gone to the gym before that, I know that when I'm on that call with them, I'm able to be more present with them. And simultaneously, like yesterday, we went on this like boat on the lake for like half the day. And then I came back and the rest of the afternoon, I was just working on like this Google Doc thing that I'm making for my clients. And I just had so much more clarity as I was writing. And I think if it was 3 years ago when I was really in like hustle mode in like the transition period of my life, I never would have gone out and done something just because I felt like doing it. I would have only worked all the time. And then I would begin to resent everything that I was doing because I was like, ugh, I need to make that thing for my clients now. Whereas now I think, okay, I can't wait to go and sit down and do that because I genuinely enjoy it again, because I was able to create more time for myself. And so I think the more time I'm spending speaking to other people who are really, really high achievers, and also who are, they have this like charismatic personality, I find that they actually spend a lot of time doing free time things, whereby it's not just working behind their laptop constantly. So that's been pretty interesting.
I think that there is a narrative, and I think that there's some truth to this, that you can't expect people to be interested in you if you don't do interesting things in your life.
True.
And
Yeah.
specifically when you are a content creator, and that is the top of funnel for generating leads, if you don't live an interesting life, what are you going to produce content about?
True.
Now, there's nuance to that statement, but that makes sense to me. Also, like, I don't know, you got to enjoy life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's interesting because at the end of the day, and I see a lot of people really afraid as well to spend money, even though they've made a lot, but they just don't want to spend it.
Yeah.
And so there's just no point. Like my dad actually said this to me in 2020, because I was in Mexico when the lockdowns first happened, and I went to the supermarket and there were these Mexican cops with these giant like tanks outside of the supermarket. And so I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I go in and I made this video and I sent it to my dad. He was like, you need to get back to England. I was like, so I looked at the flights, and like pretty much all the flights have been cancelled, except there was this one flight that was $12,000, and I'd never spent $12K on a flight before, you know? And so he was like, yeah, but Lauren, like, you realize the reason why you make a lot of money is so that you can pay for different opportunities and solutions when you really, really need them. So I thought, you know what, he's so right. So obviously I went back to the UK, but yeah, like there's no point in having a ton of money if you're never going to do anything with it. And I just think that it's a weird mindset. And I personally am pretty like entrenched in the internet marketing space. And it seems like a lot of people are really willing to spend a lot of money on, you know, their business, but not on themselves. And so I wonder, where does that come from? And why is that a common theme in so many people's lives?
Yeah, I know for me, it's a really deep question because it has a lot to do with how I grew up. And I grew up in a sort of upper middle class home where quite literally I heard money doesn't grow on trees all the time.
Yeah.
And my mentality around it in business and in life has had to change over the course of time. And it did not change quickly. For me, part of that is that I don't want to be the person that's pissing away money frivolously.
Yeah.
And so I want to, you know, make smart decisions with money. And the more you have, the more hopefully you start to realize that it is a tool and it creates leverage. And it is really, truly either money or time. And you're spending one of them. And so if you're trying to save money, you're usually investing your own time to get things done. And the path to expansion, whether that's personally or in business, often involves spending money.
Yeah. Well, it's really hard as well because some people are on such a crunch with their profit margins, whereby it's like, okay, do I invest in hiring this other team member, or do I have an extra 7-8 grand a month that I can pay myself? And I think that's a real problem though for a lot of people. I'm seeing this a lot, especially right now. People are really, really, really struggling with their margins. And so I understand that, but then at the same time, you have to consider, like, if you were to have an extra 20, 30 hours a week, what more you could do with that to actually create more potential profits in your business. So there's a massive balance that's needed in order to figure this out. Because just the other week, we were trying to think like, okay, our head of operations needs to have a assistant. So what should we do at this point? Because really, we only need, the amount of time that it takes my head of operations is like 10, 20 hours a week, but it's energy draining stuff for her. So if we're going to hire someone else, this probably is a 40-hour a week type of job for them, because they're not going to be as efficient as her. So for us, then it was a really, really easy decision to hire that person. But obviously, you know, that comes with a lot of management and potential inefficiencies that come from another person on the team doing the thing. But at the end of the day, it was a move that we needed to make, but that we could make because we have the margins to do that. And because I would rather someone on my team who's an A player have her team freed up. And so I've had to it's kind of like getting your head around like delaying the sense of achievement, as it were, or how do I put this? It's like, I don't necessarily now just care about like making more profit. I want the people on my team to actually be happy. I want them to be doing the work that's in their zone of genius too, because like I had so many like genuine, legit like trauma from the past of like people leaving suddenly. I'm just like, now I just want people on my team to be able to do the work that they're good at, that they enjoy to do, where they can thrive, within reason, obviously. Like I still need them to be focusing on the right things, but that's been something that I think I had to figure out in becoming a better leader. Yeah, because before I was only thinking about myself. Yeah.
Yep. I think it's a never ending game.
Yeah.
Yep. For sure. I mean, as you progress in both revenue and headcount in businesses, and you get exposed to different types of businesses, who you need to be in those roles changes.
Right.
And so your relationship with spending money on your team or on your staff, or with what you want your ethos to be, changes.
Right.
And somebody told me a very long time ago, when I grew up in pretty aggressive sales, and I was sitting with this guy who was he was a real estate investor. He was a realtor and a real estate investor. And he told me when he got into real estate, one of the things that he was very deliberate about was thinking about how he viewed wins and how often the wins came. He had come from a transactional selling environment where he would close, 3 to 5 people a day.
Yeah.
And so he got this dopamine hit from the closes.
Oh my gosh, so much dopamine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he moved to real estate where you're closing things many, many days in between.
Yeah.
And he had to think about, how do I create those same wins in short order? And for him, it was making calls and associating a positive conversation as a win. Right. But ultimately what it comes down to is, it's up to you.
True.
Ultimately, it comes down to you as a leader or you as a salesperson to decide, hey, what am I going to categorize as winning if it's not actually closing the sale?
Well, yeah, because as you hire people into your team, the reward is no longer about your own personal achievement.
Right.
And it's about the achievement through other people. And so being able to understand that was really hard for me, because I was also from sales. Like I was always doing all the sales myself for my first business. And I was able to close multiple people a day as well, just through the DMs, just texting people back and forth, because it was a much lower price point thing.
Yeah.
And so then when you begin to hire like sales reps or various different people on the team, and then they are the one that makes the sale, and then really the reward comes after a client has stayed with you for a longer period of time, because that's when it becomes super profitable.
Right.
It's such a longer term game, but I think it also adds more interest to building a better business generally, because I think a lot of people can be really good at sales and marketing quite easily. And I've seen this problem massively in the online marketing space, where people can sell and promote and get so much attention, but then they can't fulfill.
Yeah.
And that has become a really bad reputation for a lot of internet marketers over the last few years, especially. Because how many times have you heard, oh yeah, like I've been burned by a coach, or, oh, I did an online course, but it was really, really bad. And so then that generally puts a negative spin on the industry in its entirety. It's probably challenging for you with payment processing, right? Everyone's got their payment processes shut down right now.
Yep.
So people are feeling jaded towards the industry. It's just common at the moment where a lot of people have just kind of screwed things up by marketing the world and then not necessarily delivering on it, which causes problems in general.
Sure. Well, look, that's at the core of, it's one of several value propositions for Easy Pay Direct, but people come to us specifically because they've had accounts closed or had a hard time with their payment processor. And we work with a huge chunk of coaches, consultants, like pick a guru person, and we're probably doing their payments. But at the core of that problem is exactly what you said, which is a mismatch between the expectations that are being set and the product that's being delivered.
Yeah.
And that's at the core. And there's tons of nuance to that statement, but that's at the core.
Yeah.
And what is definitely true as you pointed out, is that marketers have gotten good at getting people to click the buy button, but it doesn't mean that they're good at fulfilling the product or service.
No.
And so there's definitely, that's very close to my heart. We talk about this a lot.
Well, how do you, because that's important for you as a company, right? Because obviously if they are really good at marketing, but they're not good at fulfillment, there's more chance of chargebacks.
Yep.
So how do you protect against that?
Some of that is filtering. So at the core of Easy Pay Direct, we do underwriting. And the game is how quickly can we do the underwriting to get to know the business, who they are, what they do, how they operate, so that we can assess the likelihood of that happening later, the likelihood of there being a problem later. So some of it is looking at the historical data. And then the other is the willingness of the company to accept help, right? So if you have a chargeback problem, why is it happening? And sometimes it's that the business owner is just really rigid and they just have a shit product and they don't want to refund things. And sometimes that's the case. Another way to say that would be that they're a super aggressive marketer and they're not willing to change anything because they see that, the bell going off from every new sale. Yeah. But we tend to find very often that a lot of those people are super willing to accept help because they know in payments, if your chargebacks get out of control, you lose the ability to accept payments and it can happen forever. And then then you can't accept for like 5 years. Yeah. So a lot of them will take our help, and it's a question of we've got a whole bunch of mechanisms to do this, but at the front line, it's how do you make refunds easier so that people don't dispute the charge?
Got it. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, because what I've noticed with like USA clients versus Europe, UK, etc., the chargeback is way lower outside of the USA.
Oh, yeah.
I think the chargebacks I've ever had has only been from USA customers.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but we also like when we were working with primarily Europe, like we would just have them wire money because they don't even use credit cards in a lot of European countries. They only have debit cards. And so you might as well just have them wire it just because why not? Like,
sure.
It's also cheaper for them, like, especially because I don't know. It was interesting when you were doing big upfront payments, but just on that note, I have a selfish question. What like is a typical chargeback rate that's like normal or acceptable?
So first of all, it varies from country to country or region to region. Visa and MasterCard have seven different regions. So North America, South America, Europe, Asia, et cetera. And
I bet it's really low in Asia.
They're all just a little different.
Okay.
But
really?
Yeah, but at the core, it's the number that people need to be focused on is 1%.
1%. Okay. That's pretty high, actually.
It's funny because you say it's pretty high and then other people are like, oh, that's like nothing. And it really is all perception. But 1% is the number where our industry, the credit card processing industry, looks at it. And if you see it over that, the first thing you do is think, well, what industry are they in? So
it might be like adult stuff.
You got it. So some industries are just inherently going to have a higher dispute rate. Like we have same thing with refunds. So if you buy an info product and it's just information, the refund rates on that can typically be 10, 15, 20%. That's not uncommon. Yeah. If you own a coffee shop and you have a 20% refund rate, we need to shut that shit down. Something is wrong with your coffee, right?
Yeah.
So it really depends on the industry that you're in.
True.
But that 1% is a good guiding rule. And then from there, I think, you really need to know based on the industry that you're in and have guidance if chargebacks become a problem. But there are tons of tech mechanisms to control them and help with them. And at the core, it's trying to deliver the product and market it the same way.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like a pretty good way to run a business, huh?
It's the basics, right? It's the basics. Well, look, Lauren, I love that you came out. I love getting you in person here instead of video because it's just so much more fun.
So much more fun, right?
Where do you want to point people? If people want to find out more about you, where do they go?
Yeah, so the best place is just probably my social media, Lauren Tickner, LaurenTickner, just in case someone can't understand my funny accent. And I'm all over all different socials. And then we have a podcast as well called Impact School Podcast, which is on hiatus right now, but it'll be back soon. Also interviewed like Grant Cardone and stuff, which was fun. So those are the best places. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Of course. Love it. I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I enjoyed doing it. I need your help. There are 3 places you can find Beyond a Million: the podcast itself, beyondamillion.com, which has some cool free resources, including a free course. And we finally launched the Beyond a Million YouTube channel. I would love it if you would go there and subscribe. And if you don't want to, you still would probably enjoy seeing the visual content. Check it out, youtube.com/@Beyond a Million.